Good evening and welcome back to more from day one, the overnight edition as we grab from the mailbag, of course, to begin. And we also go back to Midnight in the Desert with David Jacobs, the final portion of the UFO and alien abduction interview. So without further ado, here he is, Art Bell and David Jacobs.
That's going to be the subject of my third book, my last book, rather. My life was not in danger, but what happens is when abductees come to me and their friends, the aliens, find out about it, the first thing that the aliens do is try to stop them from talking to me. That is a breach. This is a clandestine phenomenon, and it's secretive and it's extremely successful secretively, and so. To breach this, to go ahead and tell people what they're doing is not good, and they try to get people to stop. And by and large, they do get people to stop. One time, years and years ago, I was doing a session. It was our 10th session with a guy. This guy had a PhD in mathematics. I was doing a session with him, and in the 10th session, he was telling me what was happening, and then suddenly he sat bolt upright. And he said, I shouldn't be telling you this. And he got up and he said goodbye, and then he walked out, and I never saw him again in the session. Now, they obviously had gotten to him saying, you're doing the wrong thing, you shouldn't be going there, you shouldn't be telling him that, and all that sort of stuff. And they got to him. And other people have done similar things. But this one woman was extremely resistant, and she kept talking to me and talking to me and talking to me. And they did all sorts of things to her, and they even have methods of violence that they use. And this has been reported to me by several different people, so I know that and the methods are so somewhat off the wall that it's hard to it's not the first thing that would come to mind.
All right, Professor, would you hold on? We're coming up on a break, and I'm going to take a moment early just to say, my God. Are you all listening to this? I'm going to open the lines. I really think you need to be able to ask questions. So our public line is area code 952-225-5278. That's 952-225-5278. Skype in North America, of course, MITD51. And in the rest of the world, MITD55. In all my years of doing talk radio, I have never, ever run into something quite like this. This really is frightening. And I must say, if you were thinking of devious ways to take over a species, it doesn't get much better than this. From the high desert, I'm Art Bell, and this is Midnight in the Desert.
Again, we'll return to them as soon as the music is back. So I seeing if I could get all the way up with Sigurd. Not quite. Sylvia, Vulcan, Nova, I could go 340. And Titans, I can go 165.
With Art Bell. Now, here starts. Here I am. All right, we've got something odd going on. And, boy, you would expect that during a show like this, wouldn't you? Really odd. Nobody can call in. You're getting a busy signal. I just tested it myself. So something's up with the phone system that I suspect is related to the internet problem. I am getting Skype calls by the dozens, so no problem there. You can get hold of us using Skype at MITD51 for North America and MITD55 for the rest of the world, but none of your calls are coming in. So we're going to have to probably deal just with Skype. I understand it would be very, very busy. My goodness. Between what we're talking about tonight, between that and everything else that's going on is just a total mind blower. This entire program is a mind blower. Professor, welcome back.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to put a few on the air with you from Skype, if that's okay. I mean, obviously, people are going to have a lot of questions about this. Larry, you're on the air.
Hello, Art. How are you?
You're listening to the show, right?
Yeah, and I'm feeling the way you are.
Yeah.
But, Mr. Jacobs, my question is...
Professor Jacobs, actually.
I'm sorry, Professor Jacobs. Did you ever run into any of your abductees that were able to maybe stop the phenomenon by invoking Christ?
No, that question comes up every once in a while. Nobody has been able to stop it by invoking any religious figure, and of course, this cuts across all religions and all races and all everybody's. But invoking the name of a religious person has meant nothing.
Doesn't work. Okay, well, good try. That removes that one. Is there? I guess this is a pretty good question. Is there any defense that you can imagine or that you've thought of yet against what they're doing to us?
You know, I'm not a scientist, that's the thing. And if the scientific community would pay attention to this just a little bit, they might be able to figure something out that could stymie them or slow them down or do something that would be beneficial for us. And I just don't see that happening in the near future. And besides that, this program is now so old. I mean, it goes back down to the 20th century that and their technology is so unbelievably advanced that I just can't imagine stopping it. I mean, maybe they could, but I should be talking about this.
No, I know. But I mean, that's an obvious question. I mean, there's got to be some defense. There's got to be some way to fight back.
Right, and there must be some way. There has to be some way, and it's up to the scientific community to put their collective heads together and figure out a way to do it. But I'm a historian. I have trouble enough opening up a door handle.
All right. Let's try another one. Chaz, you're on the air. Hello.
Hey, Art. Hey, guys. How you doing?
Well,
I have a question.
Yes.
If we have no way of knowing whether we can defend ourselves against them, what were the medical conditions of the people that are actually being abducted? Did any of them have any type of diseases or ill health or anything like that, or were they all just pretty fit?
Well, that's a pretty good question, actually.
One of the people in my book, Allison, died in 2011. She had been with me since 1993, and the aliens did not do anything to alleviate her type 1 diabetes. And they didn't care. There's more where she came from. In other words, that's my sense of it. Miracle cures is not in their benefit. It points to something odd going on. And so we don't see miracle cures, although I have, in fact, cataloged a few of them in Secret Life when people were very young and were kids, and they, in fact, were cured, 2 different people of something. But when people get cancer, generally speaking, they do nothing. If they have heart disease, they do nothing. Look at Carla Turner, famous abduction researcher, died of breast cancer, and they let nature take its course, knowing that there's millions of abductees out there who'll take a place.
Yeah, I mean, why do anything? It just gets in the way of their goal anyway. So, just let nature take its course, I guess, and they proceed with their program, their insidious program.
Yeah, abductees are killed in car crashes as well.
There you go, Chaz.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Okay.
sure wish there was. This is horrible, absolutely horrible. That's all I can say.
Fairly disastrous. Once again, I would have preferred to just be snoozing next to the abductee while they're saying the same thing over and over and over again. But that's just not what happened. I mean, I didn't cause this to happen, as some people would think.
Again, it's the tape breaking, not us.
They don't tell me what I want them to tell me. You know what I mean?
And I would think that this would all be the last thing you'd want to hear.
It is the last thing I want to hear. I didn't sign up for this. I signed up for back in 1965, 66, when I started looking at UFOs. I thought this was contact between two species who would meet together on the White House lawn and exchange presents and gifts and cure cancer and all that sort of stuff. That was sort of the sense I had, because they were so unbelievably advanced to be able to get here in the first place. But when I started, when I was introduced to Bud Hopkins back in 1982, and then I started to understand that there really was something to this abduction phenomenon, and he introduced me to abductees, and of course I read his books. Then I realized that this was a much more complicated situation than I thought, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out why they would have babies and all that. And then when I started doing my research based on, my ideas from Bud, it just sort of led in this trajectory that Bud was having, but then the trajectory began to shift into these other things while maintaining the original stuff there, but it just, the more I looked into it, the wider it got, and the more I learned about it. And then and then people began to tell me, starting in 2003, about these hybrids, and then I was off to the races, so to speak.
This is off the charts scary. Karen from Toronto asks the professor to explain the mechanics of hybrid human mind control. Does he have any taped recordings or documentation of what he claims the abductees have told him?
Well, we have no documentation in terms of close-ups there's all sorts of shadowy photographs and all that, but there's nothing on board, and there's no pictures of humans standing there with their eyes wide open and aliens staring into them at a distance of either touching foreheads or an inch away.
What about transcripts or recordings, Professor, from?
Well, I've got transcripts and recordings of all my sessions, all of them.
So you have plenty to back this up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah. I mean, with the abduction phenomenon, you can't remember what a person said. You have to record everything, and then you can't listen to, in those days, cassette tapes. You can't listen to any tape. You have to sit there for another 3 hours listening to something you already spent 3 hours listening to. You have to have it transcribed, and then you can read through it and look at the certain points that you're looking for and so forth. However, the reports, I'm the one who sort of discovered this neurological basis way early on, and I put it in 1990 in Secret Life. And the only way that I could think of what they were actually doing was they were, when I asked the person, well, when he's staring at you like that, can you close your eyes? Can you avert your eyes? Can you do whatever? And they said no, they just looking straight ahead. And then I realized that the only nerve that is accessible from the outside, that is viewable essentially, is the optic nerve. And you can see it in the back of the eye. And my guess is, and this is I'm not a physician, but my guess is that they're hooking into the optic nerve and then using it as a conduit to go to any other neurological sites in the brain, and they can energize anything they want. They can add stuff, detract stuff. They can put images in. They can do all sorts of things. For example, here is something that was played out in a woman's mind. Now, the phenomenon is amazingly mundane. For example, she sees in her mind's eye now. I can't absolutely say it was a mind. She thinks it might have been in a screen or it might have been in her mind, but this is typical mind stuff. She sees a woman who is walking down a sidewalk in some setting. It's a nice setting in a town, and she stops at a bus stop, and it's a sheltered bus stop, and she sits down in the bus stop.
Yes.
There's another woman sitting next to her. The bus pulls up, the other woman gets in, and then she gets in, and she takes her money out of her purse, and she puts it in the bus stop money place, and she walks to the end of the bus or wherever, and she sits down. That's the end of the movie. Immediately, an alien turns to her and says, "What did she do wrong?" So the woman says, "Well, she looked pretty good to me. Everything was fine. She looked a little, maybe too nervous or something, but other than that, everything looked fine. You know." That's the level of learning that's going on here, and who would think of an image of a drama like that? How many Hollywood producers would have that as you know, as something that they could sell to a major movie company to capitalize on this drama? Here's another one. A 10-year-old kid, a growing, probably Hubert kid, comes down with to a woman's house. This is typical stuff. With a caretaker. He was an older guy in his 20s, and she takes him around the house and shows him this and shows him that and shows him other things. Now they go into the living room, and she sits on the couch, and the caretaker sits on the couch, and the kid sits in this upholstered chair, but he's sitting right on the edge. He's sitting on the edge. He's not sitting back or anything.
Yes.
So the caretaker says to him, "Sit back." So he sits back a little bit, but he's sort of ramrod straight. And the caretaker urges him, what's wrong with you? Just sit back. And he doesn't want to. And then the abductee realizes what's going on, and she says, no, you're not going to fall through the back of it. It's got a backing inside the upholstery, inside the covers, and you won't fall through. So he gets up and he walks around to the back of the chair, and he feels the back of the chair. He says, oh, I see. Okay, yeah. And then he gets back on the chair, and he slowly slides back, and then he slowly hits the back, and it's okay.
So a teaching moment. All right.
But it's so mundane. It's so off the wall.
Yeah, it is.
So who would think of something like that? And I have account after account by person after person of things like that going on. It's just astounding.
I should let people ask questions. Jaroslav, I believe it is, outside the country somewhere. Hello.
Hello.
Hi there. Where are you?
I'm in Poland.
Poland. Okay.
Great. Gosh.
Yes. So what do you think about all this? You've been listening tonight, right?
Yes, I am.
And?
I have a question. How can you know for sure that it is actually bad for human race? I mean, it could be good for human race, maybe just another step of development of human race, because we already are a product of ET genetic manipulation, as far as I know.
What a question.
Well, I know for a product of genetic manipulation as opposed to genetic change that happens over the millions of years, but any group that can control another group will go ahead and control the group for their own benefit. That has happened. That has never happened like this before, but certainly anybody in power can control others, and oftentimes if they don't like those others, it leads to disaster. It benefits them in some way to do what they're doing, and it doesn't necessarily benefit us. It might. You might be right. It might be good for us in some way. But because this is such a clandestine program, because it is so secretive, and because they are so frightened of anybody saying anything about what's going on, I just can't imagine that it would be for our benefit.
Okay. I just thought, the real evil we must deal right now is globalist bankers, industrial military complex, and such people.
Well, unless
Yeah,
we've got this going on, this sounds a lot worse to me.
yeah. It's I don't know which is worse right now, but because the program I think is still a young program, but it'll get old pretty soon. But I can't see. People have said, well, this is just evolution. This is
No, it's not just evolution is a natural process. So
right, and that's what I say in the book. It's unnatural evolution. It's unnatural. It's not evolution that benefits us necessarily. It benefits them.
Caller in Poland, maybe you're one of them.
I don't think so. I've never had any encounter with ETs or UFOs as far as I know.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for the call. And let me ask you, Professor, when you ask somebody something like I just did, kind of rude, I guess, what would their normal response be? I mean, would it be what he just said? I don't think so. Or...
I never asked a question. Never, ever asked a question. I've learned that I just can't do that and when people tell me about their experiences, I've learned to say, oh, that's interesting. And I don't say, oh my God, that sounds like an abduction experience to me. As I said earlier on, I just don't like ruining people's lives, and when people come to me,
yeah. But isn't all this about to ruin all our lives eventually?
Yeah, but they've got a life to live for as long as possible. It's up to them to make the decision. When they come to me when they fill out my questionnaire, and I decide I'll work with them, and they have to live within 100 miles of me and all that, I give them very strong warnings about going forward with this. I say, look, you stand on the verge of making a life-changing decision. One of the most important life-changing decisions you will ever make if you do find out that something is going on. And the first thing that happens is you're isolated. If you tell your family about it, they'll think you're crazy and they'll want you to get help. And that's a loving thing for them to do.
And then it may well be that when you get to that help, you will recite essentially what you're saying tonight, and they will affirm the fact that you need help.
They could wind up in the booby hatch. Absolutely.
Exactly. Holy moly.
Not only that, it's worse than that. They oftentimes can't tell their husband or their wife, because if they tell their husband or their wife, the husband says, oh, that's crazy, that's nuts, that's crazy, that's nuts, and thinks that and then it's all fun and games. And then one night, the husband will see something, then realize, oh my God, this is happening, and then not want to be with the wife in close proximity to the wife anymore because they're frightened. Not only that, but when a couple divorces, and if a person knows that the other one is an abductee, the first thing they tell the judge is, this woman thinks she's having sex with aliens, I want the kids.
Yeah, of course. Felipe, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art. Hello. My question for your guest, I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes.
Is you mentioned earlier that eventually these beings would invade the Earth. So my question is, if those of us who choose to cooperate with the aliens, will we get better treatment than everyone else, or will our lives be spared?
Well, you wouldn't know who a Hubert or alien-looking human would be. You would not know that. All you would know is that a person came up to you and you really liked that person and you just decided to give him all the money in your pocket. That's all you would know, and you'd feel good about it. It would never occur to you that anything odd happened.
That is the most insidious kind of invasion anybody could ever imagine. And that's, believe me, that's what I'm getting. 1 million computer messages here. So there's a lot of people who are completely buying into this. Trust me. And it's just scary. Sassy, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi, I have a question for Professor Jacob.
Right.
When these Huberts are all living on Earth, throughout the Earth, how sparsely spread are they? Because wouldn't they stick out by having no family or?
Well, they don't stick out at all. From what I've been told, if I've been listening, they are normal of the normal. In other words, they don't stick out at all.
But they don't have any like siblings or parents or cousins. You know, I mean, how did they explain that?
Yeah, that has not come up so far, and I don't know how they explain that. I do know that they're moving in very young, between the ages of around 17 and 23, and they're moving in small groups, 2s, 3s, and 4s, into apartments.
Wow.
Having said that, there are what I call independent hybrids who move in alone into apartments. They have to learn about what a family is. You got to remember, they have no mother or father that they know of. They have no siblings that they know of. They don't know how old they are. They don't know about aunts and uncles and cousins, and they don't know if they do know, they don't know what part they have in a family. They don't know any of. They learn all that from abductees, and if they say, they could probably eventually learn to say something. Well, I'm an orphan, and I was raised in an orphan asylum until until I was older or something like that. I'm sure that they'll figure out something to say that the abductees will tell them what to say if that ever comes up. But it's an interesting question, and I don't know the absolute answer to it, but it seems to me that it's going to be easy to overcome.
I'm not sure any of this is going to be easy to overcome. I mean that for them maybe, but I almost don't see a way out of this. If what you say is true, then maybe the lady who said we're cooked has it right. We're cooked.
Yeah, that's a pretty good phrase. I tend to think that. There's a chapter at the end of the book which is a speculative chapter. And one of the questions that I ask is, are we the first planet ever to have this happen to? You know, are we numero uno, number one?
Do you have an answer to that?
Yes, there's no possibility we're the first planet. It's just not possible. And I give about 9 reasons why it is not possible that we are the very first in the universe to have this happen. It's probably happened to many, many other planets as well. And there's some other questions that I ask, and I try to clear up this whole internet world of reptilians. Reptilians are reported from time to time. That's it. It's unusual. But every once in a while, somebody will say, well, this guy looks reptilian. I really don't like him. Oh, I hate this guy. He's horrible. Oh, God, keep him away from me.
Yeah.
Oh, he's angry. He's this, he's that. I say, well, is he hurting you or anything? No. Well, is he slapping you around? No. Well, is he really aggressive to you? No. Well, what's he doing? Well, he's just doing his standard stuff that everybody else does, but I just hate him. I hate him. And I think I have a logical explanation for why they're there. I'm going to keep that quiet for a while because there's a lot of transcripts. There's not a whole lot of me talking in the book.
Tyrone, you're on the air.
Yes, Art. Why do they abduct one person 400 times instead of 400 people once for sampling?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, well, the key idea here is sampling. They abduct one person over and over and over again, not only because they get sperm and eggs, but because they have all sorts of different tasks to do on board the object. When they're kids, they play with hybrid children. When they're older, they teach other hybrid children how to do older, adolescent type things and all that sort of stuff. They have a world which they belong to, which they're involved with that they don't even know about, and that when they do learn about it, they wish that they weren't. Having said that, I don't know why people are abducted so often. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense. There's no reason for it, it seems to me. But
well, no reason that we understand. It may well be.
Right. It makes sense to them, and there is a reason for them. For me, I don't know. But this one woman, Betsy, who's sort of the star of the book, she was being abducted every other day almost for a couple of years, a year and a half or whatever it was. I can't remember exactly. Constantly. I would talk with her on the phone, or it would do instant messaging or email, and she would hear clunking going on upstairs, and she'd say, "I think they're here. I have to get off." And we would do a session on what happened the night before, and sure enough, and this is a really wonderful person. Her life and her husband's and children revolved around the church, and she wasn't a person who was making up stories to lie to me and all the rest of that stuff. And I've known her since 1999. I'm still in contact with her. In fact, I was in contact with her just the day before yesterday.
All right, Tyrone, anything else?
No, that's about it for now, but I appreciate the answer, Dr. Jacobs.
Thank you very much.
I wish I could give you a fully developed answer to why they're abducted over and over again over the course of a year, but I can't.
Can you give us a fairly fully developed answer to this question? Professor, what you're saying tonight is so uber that it really has to be asked. How honestly sure are you of what you're telling us tonight?
Well, having done abduction research since 1986 by myself, that is to say with hypnosis, and having heard people say things that are not true,
yes,
and having people confabulate like crazy at this, that, and the other thing, and learning that when somebody says something for the first time, it's not evidence, you gotta move with other people.
Right.
And knowing some of these people for long periods of time, and knowing their families and this and that, I'm fairly certain that this is true. It's as certain as you can get with humans, you know what I mean? Unless you're actually looking in their window as a peeping Tom and watching them being abducted.
All right, Professor.
And again, we'll return as soon as our musical bumper is done. The breakups are actually from the night that it was recorded, as he said he had internet trouble and he basically broadcast through internet protocols.
Exclusively on the Dark Matter Digital Network. To call the show, dial 1-952. Call Art. That's 1-952-225-5278.
You know, the hairs on my arm are doing a pretty good job of standing up tonight. Anyway, this is really, really scary stuff. Professor, welcome back.
Well, thanks for continuing to have me on. I'm not exactly the bearer of glad tidings.
Not even close. Not even close. I don't know. Let's go here. Johnny, you're on the air, I guess. Where are you?
Hi, Art. Good evening to you, Dr. Jacob. I'm Johnny Webb in London. A couple of questions I want to ask you over what's been said this evening. To answer the question about Jesus intervening, there was a testimony of a MUFON investigator terminating abductions as a life pattern by Joseph Jordan. And he says there's many cases out there where people have called on Jesus and apparently fallen back down on their beds. Also, my other question was, were you ever able to go into the past of your patients or future to see if they were contacted in other reincarnates? And also, have they managed to speed up the growth of hybrids?
Okay, let's see. The first question was saying the name of a religious deity.
Yes.
What happens? This is the abduction phenomenon. No, wait. The second question was what?
About reincarnation.
Reincarnation. The third question was. What was the third question?
The third one is have these entities been able to speed up the growth of a hybrid?
Oh yeah, no, they develop at the same rate as humans do. In terms of reincarnation, there's been no work done on that, and so it doesn't seem to have anything to do with the abduction phenomenon. But the question is religious incantation. Here's what happens, and this is a story of the problems of people who don't know how to do abduction research. They say, I said the name of Jesus. They were there. They left the room, and I fell back on the bed, and I stopped the abduction.
Yeah, I've heard that.
They tell me they were coming in, and I threw a pillow at them. I saw them coming in. They were inside the house. I threw a pillow at them, and then they got out of there, and I stopped the abduction. They tell me things like that. What they're saying is they were abducted. This happened, that happened, this happened, that happened, that happened, this on and on and on. They came back to their bedrooms, let's just say, or their car or the backyard or whatever it is, and they sort of came to, they got back into their normal memory a little too soon, and the aliens were still there. So they picked up something and threw at them, and they aborted the abduction. They weren't abducted. See what I mean? They came to a little too soon. They came out of the trance or whatever the heck they were in on board the object that they, to be controlled. And that's what happens. No one has ever stopped an abduction by themselves. I have one other case when a person was about to be abducted and the phone rang, and she was startled enough to answer the phone. It interrupted. That's the only case out of 1,150 that I've ever seen where there might have had an abduction aborted. Maybe.
Johnny?
Well, in your book, The Threat, I remember you talking about, whilst being under a hypnotic regression, that there was another entity in the room and they were conscious of you being in that spirit at the time. Do you know what I mean?
There was another person in the room and they were conscious of me?
Yeah, so whether it was, one of the abductees, but there was an entity in the room and they were conscious of you being, in this present time, hypnotizing your patient, but the patient was letting you know that there's someone in the room with them who knows you're doing what you're doing.
Yes, that does happen. And the answer to that is, don't do that. Stop doing that. You are not to do that. You are hurting us. This gets them very, very upset, very excited because it is, in fact, a breach of their secrecy program. I was saying earlier that this one woman had violence directed towards her in a very strange way. Ultimately, they couldn't stop her from seeing me, so what they tried to do was to find out where I was and maybe get me to stop seeing her. That's going to be the subject of a book of mine sometime when I'm about 109 years old. But needless to say, they never did get to me. I don't think they never got to me. But there's a story involved in why they didn't get to me also. So
it sounds like we have several shows to do, Professor. Marion, hello there. You're on the air. Where are you, please?
Hi, I'm in Romania, Bucharest, Romania.
Romania.
Yeah.
Okay. You have a question?
Yes. The question is, what if the professor is a defector of theirs?
Actually, not such a crazy question in a way, Professor.
If I'm a defector?
Yeah, if you're in essence a defector of theirs. I mean,
who, me?
You.
Nothing strange has ever happened to me in my life, and I can remember all aspects of it, or some aspects of it, for the last 5 or 6 years. No, I can remember when I was a baby, when I was a little boy, and I've got pictures of me all the way through, and my mother was not an abductee, my father was not an abductee, and that's what determines it. If your mother or your father was an abductee, the chances are extremely high that you will be an abductee. But you can't be a defector. You can't get away. Most people, 95%, that's a guess, but it's probably a good guess, 95% of abductees around the world do not know that they're abductees. And even if they think that they're abductees, it's such a crazy subject. They just put it out of their minds to a certain extent, and they think it's dreams. But they know it's not because it happens in real time. and they come back. People come back from abductions, and sometimes their clothes are on backwards. And sometimes their clothes, they come back to the bed, their pajamas are off. They're not wearing their pajamas, or their pajamas are on backwards. Sometimes they come back wearing somebody else's clothes. And people are physically missing from their normal environments when they're abducted. Police have been called, and search parties, and this and that. And children are searched for their parents, and parents are searched for their children in real time, And people are abducted in groups and can confirm each other's abductions. If you want to hear a story about it.
Is there a chance that you may be an enhanced exponent of this?
An exponent of it? I want to see it stopped immediately. I'm not an exponent. I'm a person who has learned about it and now is telling everybody what I've learned. And you have to remember that this is a phenomenon that is global. It's worldwide, and it's been going on for a long time. And the only indication of it was the UFO phenomenon, and people could not make that connection until decades and decades and decades into seeing UFOs. And then they began to realize that there were people inside those UFOs, aliens, and they were here for a reason. They weren't here to just learn about us or to collect flora and fauna, as a lot of people thought for many years. They were here for a reason.
Got it. Let's go to Joe very quickly. Joe, you there?
Yes. Hi, Art, Professor. Second-time caller, Joe, San Diego County.
Okay.
Talking about the procreation, going back to how you're saying that these aliens procreated, that harkens back to the Middle Ages, not the 17th century, when the witch burnings and the huntings, Reverend Montague Summers and the Malleus Maleficarum stated that demons would come first as a woman to seduce a human male, and the semen would be used to not only fertilize for the demon, but then the leftover she would transform into an incubus, and therefore would seduce a woman again. And each time there would be DNA from the demons mixed in with the humans and passed on. And so it sounds so similar that maybe they've been doing this since the 17th century. Could that be possible?
Probably not. And the reason is because we would probably know about it in some way, in people's diaries, in stories written, in other ways that we would be able to keep track of it. But in fact, now there's a huge flaw in what I'm saying, because in the 1920s, we know what's happening in the 1920s and the 1930s, and nobody said anything. So that may be wrong. But at the same time, we have been able to trace it back to the last quarter of the 19th century. And after that, we completely lose sight of it. And we also lose sight of airships. For example, in 1896 and 1897, there was a mystery airship wave, which was very strange indeed. A lot of people think it was folklore, but it didn't seem like folklore. Then in 1909, there were airship waves in the New England area. Then there was really not much that people reported. That's a critical event until World War II, and then there was the Foo Fighters in World War II, and right after World War II. Yeah, then there was the Ghost Rockets in 1946, and then the major waves of UFO sightings that people began to report in 1947. So there is a sort of trail that we can go through looking at this thing. But when you get past the mid-19th century, let's just say, it really drops off the cliff, and you're going to get similarities here and there in literature and in art and this and that. But you can't put a whole lot of trust in those things.
All right, Joe and Professor, hold on for a second. Lance says this, Art, this is the only coherent explanation of the whole alien visitation business that I've ever heard. The pieces have always been there, but Dr. Jacobs has connected the dots. If that's true, I'm scared too. Is that how you feel, Joe?
No, actually, because, I don't feel scared. I don't feel like inciting panic or anything, but I feel this has been going on for a lot longer than,
And it doesn't scare you? It doesn't scare you?
I'm not going to live my life like that. I'm a cancer survivor, man.
No, you got to live your life. I'm with you there.
I'm living my life, but I'm not going to be scared of that until I am face to face.
Well, okay, Joe, but you may be face to face and not even know it. Right, Doctor?
That is, if you asked me that just a few years back, I would have said, no, you're not right at all. But now I have to say, yeah, you're right.
It's going to take me a while. We're coming toward the end of the show. We're not there yet, but close. I've got to digest all of this, Professor, and then I think we've got to do another program. Are you up for that?
Not tonight.
No, not tonight.
I know.
Not tonight. But I mean...
sure, if you want, though. There's only so much I know about the subject.
Yeah, but this is not the kind of thing you can just sort of lay on the table and leave it there. You just can't.
Whenever you want me, I'm yours.
All right, thank you very much. Here's Dale. Hi, Dale. Hello, Dale. Going once. Going twice. Poor Dale didn't make it. Let's try Nick. Hello, Nick.
Hi, this is Nick from California. I was wondering, if you know they're coming on such a regular basis, why don't you put cameras up in your house?
It was the first thing I thought of back in the 80s.
Really?
Yeah. I put, this is in the videotape days, and I put video cameras mounted on a videotape recorder at the slowest speed possible so that we could get 8 hours, and it would be pointed at a person in her bedroom, let's just say. And she would then look at the tapes afterwards and see which one she wanted to send me. There might be something embarrassing if she could elect not to do that and so forth, And then I did that with another person. I think I had about 12 people sleeping on the cameras at one point. What we got was a person getting up in the middle of the night, walking over to the camera, the VCR, and turning it off. What we got was a person getting up in the middle of the night and walking into another room, followed by an abduction. Or we got, they're not going to come tonight. I know they're not going to come tonight. I'm just not going to turn that machine on, followed by an abduction. So at the same time, we did get, for example, one of a huge flash in the person's bedroom in the middle of the night, which wakes her up, and then she goes right back to sleep. Now, I don't know what that was. Maybe it was a plane crash across the street. I don't know. But it was an odd flash. And then I have a long sequence where a woman goes upstairs. This is a long story, so I won't tell it, but it goes up and her two kids are sleeping in her bed. She takes one kid out and puts it in the bedroom. She comes back and she takes the other kid out and puts it in the kid's bedroom. Then she I'm trying to collapse this.
Yeah, it's not going to collapse enough unless you can really hurry.
She eventually walks out of the room, and then suddenly she's back in bed asleep. And the question is, how did she turn that VCR on and be back in bed asleep? Because it would show her moving her hand back and then walking into bed and putting the covers over her.
All right. Professor, as I mentioned, I've got to digest this and come back to you. And we've got to do another program. But you've got to admit, you've laid a lot on me and everybody to think about. Professor,
I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. Sputter, thank you for being here tonight, Professor, and we'll be in contact very shortly.
Thanks, Art. I appreciate it.
Take care. Holy mackerel. Well, that's the way to top off this day, huh? Been a difficult couple of days, in more ways than one. You all have a good night, or try to anyway, and sleep tight.
From the desert, Arbel, good night. Since he didn't say it himself, I will for him. We'll do a couple quick fights with the Sounds of Dominion on, and then we will call ourselves a night. Let's give this one a shot again, because we lost by the pattern we had set up. So let's flip these and see if it makes any difference. And no, it's not going to make a difference because there's no way we're going to win at this point. So no reason to go ahead and continue. Alright, one last battle in the regular arena as we got left. Then we will send you all to enjoying your night. If we can find one that'll work. And actually, this might get copyright restricted, but it's only about a 2-minute clip, and I can edit it out if it does. Unfortunately, the late great Alex Trebek, of course, had passed on. But before he did, and while David Letterman still had a show, he did come on to do one top 10 list with David Letterman. And here that is, the top 10 rejected Jeopardy categories.
Top 10 rejected yes. Jeopardy categories. You know, every day on the game, they have many, many dozens and dozens of categories. Here we have the top 10 rejected Jeopardy categories. Right. And ladies and gentlemen, we're very happy because tonight, presenting the top 10 list all the way through the miracle of videotape from Los Angeles, California, is the host of Jeopardy, Alex Trebek. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Dave. Hi, everyone.
Nice to see you. Okay. Top 10 now, rejected Jeopardy categories. Here we go, number 10.
Things Cher has had done to her.
All right. That's one of them all-day categories. Number 9.
All about chafing.
All about chafing. Number 8.
Exciting shows on at the same time as Jeopardy.
Rejected categories. Number 7.
Things that smell like eggs.
What would that be? That would be like eggs and...
Eggs and eggs.
Number 6.
Eatos, Tito's, and Fritos.
Oh, that's a good category right there. Got a category there. Number 5.
Canadian sex secrets.
Okay. Number 4.
Things that throb.
Number 3.
Diseases caused by watching game shows.
Yeah. Number 2.
Guys I, Alex Trebek, have beat the crap out of.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, from Alex Trebek, the number 1 rejected Jeopardy category,
gap-toothed freaks.
And there that is. Again, if you just had silence for a few moments, unfortunately, YouTube got it blocked for copyright restrictions. But if you did it, you get to enjoy it. Now the final fight before we call it a night. Five on five still at this point. Lost two. Lost three. Lost four. Big jumbled mess. I can't. Well, okay, they got all five still. And down. So as always, please make sure you do like, share, and subscribe. Get us those goals to 5,000 views so Boxing Extras will pay attention to our little channel and start sending us items we can send to you. As well as go ahead and get us to 1,000 subscribers so Google, YouTube will pay attention and do the same. Google, tongue twister, Coinbase items below. Fill that out to get your free crypto. And until we do meet tomorrow, same time, same bat channels, please make sure that all your fights in Dominion are yours and winners. Be kind to one another. Please like, share, and subscribe, and come on back for some more from day one. Have a great night, everybody.